We've got Leroy coming back with this one. Which games will Cam Ward need a turn into Superman for us to win that game?
I don't think that there's any game where he has to be Superman. I don't think that there's one, because like in my mind, what this question is asking is Miami goes into this game a level below the opposition, and we need Superman to go by himself, leap, tall buildings in a single bound, outrace a speeding bullet, save a baby, all of, like, he has to do everything and take your tickets, sell a beer, pop the popcorn, make the hot dogs. He, like, all by himself. In my brain, I immediately go to another player named Cam who had to do this to win games. Cam Newton, his 1 year at Auburn, right? That he did all of that and then some, right? But that was required. And like we all know, nobody else on that team played in the NFL. Nobody else's offense took a snap in the NFL. Like, he was doing that with a bunch of guys who were going pro in something other than sports from Auburn. You know what I mean? A bunch of dudes who went into the, Enterprise Rent-A-Car management trainee system or whatever they have, that partnership. I think that's what comes to my mind, where it's like you have to have a singular performance by this guy to leap up and overcome. I don't think that there's any of those on the schedule. I do think, in a similar way, if you remember during the pandemic season, remember that 44-41 shootout at North Carolina State when De'Aaron King was just like, dog, we're not losing. I think it would be more something like that happens along the way, where one of those games becomes a Cam Ward put the cape on and, lead the civilization to victory, as opposed to looking at the schedule and saying this game. If it was a few years ago, right, it would be, what was it, 18? The opener against Alabama? That one. Or 20, whatever that was.
Yeah.
That's the game. The year,
the like LSU the opener, game,
huh?
18 made me think that was the LSU game.
Joe right, Burrow, I was actually, just thinking that game against LSU.
I think was Alabama. 21.
Right. Yeah. So 21 Alabama, 18 LSU, and remember, Joe Burrow went like under 50% passing in that game. It was, we turned the ball over and they ran the ball down our face and had a pick six. Like, Joe Burrow was not. That was the year before he was dotting everybody up. He looked super regular degular against Miami, right? But I thought Miami was in a better place than clearly they were going into the LSU game. But that's a game where it'd be like, cool, I'm on my back, boys. I'm going to carry us to a victory. Again, I think that a game or two along the way could turn into one of those situations. Looking into the season, as we're 10 days ahead of kickoff, I don't see any game where it's just like, we have no chance to win but for Cam Ward to turn into a super duper duper star, legendary performance, more passing yards than Stephen Morris had against NC State, more touchdowns than, De'Aaron King or whoever had ever. And that's just my view. So I think that could come to pass. I don't look at the schedule and say there's no way to win this game save for that being the case. Because especially, again, I believe that Miami has the best roster in the ACC. And I get that we're not even once bitten, 13 times bitten and like 14 times shy, because how many times have we said this about having the best team in the Coastal and like and then it not getting there. But like, really and truly, I believe that this roster is there. And so I think it needs him to operate at a high level. It does not have to operate at like this super duper duper legendary level to have the kind of success that I believe we're going to have this regular season.
The difference would be this season, they have the best roster in the conference. In previous seasons, I selected them to have and finish with a better record than they ultimately did. I would pick them, let's say, to go 9-3, and they went 7-5 or 6-6. Mm-hmm. But I didn't think they were better than Clemson. Clemson, from the time we've been doing this show, Clemson's been the best up until a couple of years ago. And now, they had their struggle with Florida State, and it's a 3-team race, it appears to be. Mm-hmm. But for most of that time, 2017 was the last time that Miami obviously had a chance to do something special, but Clemson was the number one seed in the playoff that year. So Clemson is, this is the first time this team should win a championship.
Should. Absolutely. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to some great Cam Ward performances. I'm looking forward to some really, incredible things that he does along the way. And maybe one of the games, yeah, it does turn into a shootout and he just, catches fire and has to like go and do that for Miami to win. But yeah, I don't think that it's a necessity going into the year that happens in order to have any kind of success, especially in a particular game.
So since that game is not on the schedule, if
Mm.
the college football season plays out the way you expect,
Yeah.
that game's going to come in the playoffs. So how many teams in the nation do you think, okay, Cam Ward has to be that guy on that night to beat that team?
Oh, that's a good question. Top of my head, even a little unproven with the new coach, I'd say Alabama, Georgia, O State, Michigan. So that's 4 right there. I mean, if we saw A&M again, maybe, because like Tyler Van Dyke did have to dial it up to his best game last year. And, it'll be interesting to see what Mike Elko does. But regardless of what he does, they have a stacked roster of incredible athletes, which we've known after playing them the last 2 years. I think they fit. Like a Notre Dame, I want to say maybe fits in there. Yeah, I think, maybe Oregon, but I think that like you're really looking at like the really upper crust of the sport when it's just like, yeah, for Miami to really be competitive, Cam Ward has to have one of those days. I think it's probably, I think I named 6 or 7 teams. It might not be more than those that I mentioned, unless somebody else pops up randomly, crazily, like a TCU from a couple of years ago, where it's in the playoff and when they beat Michigan and got to the championship game, and they got their teeth kicked in, but something like that, I think would be kind of where I land on that one.
Maybe Texas.
Did I not say Texas? I thought Texas. The burnt orange went through, but yes, them also. I think they fit in there.
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.